Welcome back, my friends. Episode 95. In this episode, we have another very special guest. Someone from Broadway Limited is with us. So stick around because we're excited to tell you this and talk about this. So stick around because we're going to get this show on the tracks. Welcome, my friends. Episode 95. Every episode, we're inching closer to that 104 mark, which is 2 years of Model Railroad Talk. This episode, I am very excited. Like I said in the intro, we got somebody from Broadway with us, Broadway Limited Imports, and I'm going to tell you who that is. Curtis Koch from Broadway Limited. We had a very, very nice, we have a very nice conversation and you learn a lot from the manufacturer. And first of all, I want to first say thank you to Broadway Limited Imports for supporting this podcast and giving us our gift certificate that we're doing for our giveaway. And if you are interested in this, is your first episode, you don't know anything about the giveaway yet, we'll tell you about it at the very end. So make sure you listen to the whole thing so you can find out where to go, so you can sign up. It's totally free, no purchase necessary, and all that jargon that goes with it. So, but before we get to our interview with Curtis from Broadway Limited, just so it doesn't get lost in the mix, I'm going to read from our 400 plus thrilling and unbelievable train facts for enthusiasts. I'm going to read another one. This one is the chapter Remarkable Railway Journeys. The Trans-Siberian Railway, spanning over 5,700 miles across Russia. The Trans-Siberian Railway is the longest continuous railway line in the world. It offers passengers an unforgettable journey through diverse landscapes, from the forests of Siberia to the shores of the Pacific Ocean. So that's just another one from 400 plus thrilling and unbelievable train facts for enthusiasts, written by Nathan Ward, a book I got from the girlfriend's daughter for Christmas. Thank you to her. So enough of just me. Let's move into our Q&A, our interrogation, whatever you want to call it, for Curtis from Broadway Limited. So here we go. And we have, as we said, our special guest, Curtis Koch with Broadway Limited. He is the director of marketing and social media. First, I want to say to Curtis, thank you to you and Broadway Limited for supporting us with our giveaway and supporting this podcast. And secondly, thank you for coming on to the show.
Thank you for having me, and you're welcome for the giveaway. I hope whoever is the winner gets to use that and gets a well-deserved piece of BLI locomotive or rolling stock, whatever they choose to use it for. But it's going to go towards something great. I know that for sure.
Oh, yeah. Broadway Limited has great stuff. I think you guys back 20 some years ago, my old railroad was actually my first sound equipped locomotive was a Broadway Limited. So, and I've been a fan of Broadway Limited ever since. So
yeah, we were one of the first to put sound in our locomotives. Bob Gruba and a few of the other split owners of the company worked with QSI, and they were the ones that put the sound in the locomotives. I actually still have a couple of QSI sound engines myself. I have a Santa Fe Northern, the 3751, that's still got QSI sound, and 20 something ish years later, it's still running really, really well. So yeah, it's a good quality product to have for sure.
And you say that, and I'm pretty sure my Northern, Santa Fe Northern, is the 3751.
There you go.
I want to say I bought that back in 2004. So
yeah, that sounds about right. Yep.
All right, so let's start with the first question. Obviously, we sent you some questions here. I guess how did you end up being able to work at Broadway Limited?
So I was originally working in Chicago. I lived in the city itself. I lived about 5 or 6 blocks from Wrigley Field, and I had Cub season tickets and loved going to games and stuff. I'm a big Chicago sports fan as a whole, but I'd always been in the hobby. My dad and I grew up together with a home layout in our home basement and everything, and I had a ton of different BLI locomotives and I was originally working as a radio producer for this radio station WGN
Mhm.
in Chicago. I was working as a sports producer, so I was covering with Blackhawks games. We had the White Sox for a couple of years, and I helped with our Bears coverage and stuff too. And I moved on from WGN once I saw the opportunity at BLI. They had a Facebook post asking for somebody with marketing and social media and I think when you work in a media corporation in general, when you're on top of all different platforms, you got to put out content for, especially in sports, when you have a big sports fan base like Chicago does. You got to be on top of all of that sort of stuff. So
Yeah.
for me, that was a no brainer. I loved what I did in Chicago and I loved what I did in radio, but getting to work in your hobby and getting to work for a company that you have a lot of products of and you know the product very well, it was just a calling to me almost in that way. And I interviewed or sent in an application and they asked for a video and stuff. I submitted all of that and I interviewed with them and then they let me know after they interviewed the other candidates later that day that I was their guy essentially. And I had to move from Chicago down to Florida. I currently live in the Daytona Beach area. We're located in a town called Ormond Beach. Broadway is located in Ormond Beach, Florida. So I currently commute to and from BLI for work and have loved every step of the way. I don't have a house, or I have a house, but it's not a home layout type of house.
Hmm.
Being in Florida, there's no basements. So because of how low the water table is, and with all the hurricanes and stuff that weather-wise we see
Right.
down here, so there is no space for a home layout. But I am a part of the Orlando Society of Model Railroaders. So I usually go to them once or twice a month and run trains. I'm actually going there tomorrow to run trains for a little bit, so that'll be fun. But yeah, that's how I got into Broadway, and I essentially what I do for them is make all of their magazine ads and social media posts and I even go a little bit beyond that. I've also helped with bringing products to the market. So, like the UP Kenefic and Power Car and Fox River have all been my ideas and designs and stuff. And those are really fun things that are also a part of my job. I don't just get to help, advertise the models. I also get to help with the research and all of the stuff that can be a good idea for people to come who want that products of passenger cars or locomotives, what have you. So I'm kind of a little bit of a Swiss Army knife with Broadway. I kind of do a little bit of everything.
And nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
At least it lets you actually see probably the pretty much the whole process of it.
Oh yeah. The process is really interesting. That was one thing that I learned relatively quickly, or had to learn relatively quickly, is I didn't know much about the business side of model railroading, and I think a lot of customers once they kind of see that side and they see all the different costs and decision makings that go into it, I think you get a little bit more found respect for it. I know I certainly did, and I work really closely with our project manager Matt Williamson on a lot of different projects and stuff, and we're always chalking up different ideas, and it's kind of funny because we'll talk about, okay, is this something that the Kenefic car, for example, the detail arrangement on the top was something that we had to come to an agreement on because the railroad UP has a different arrangement of stuff that they use on the top for different various reasons.
Mhm.
And so we had to basically kind of come down with, okay, what's the most consistent version? And then that involves more research and everything else like that. But I'm kind of rambling here, but you get the point. There's just a lot of stuff to it when you're making these decisions, and when you're making those decisions that also help keep costs at a good point to where the customer is able to want to purchase your product and afford that product and everything. So there's a lot of steps that goes into it, more than it would be probably a 2 hour long episode
Right.
on this sort of podcast, going really deep dive into that sort of stuff, which we don't have time for, but it just kind of gives you an idea of behind the scenes of how much stuff we have to think about.
Right. And I've done my research. and I've seen videos. I've watched, I think, almost every Broadway Limited video you guys have put out on YouTube and whatnot. And and nothing against, just I've watched some of your competitor ones too. It's to me, it's interesting. How do these companies come up with these and make these? And then I actually had seen, this has been, oh, I don't know, a couple months ago. It was actually on one of your competitors' site pages that they were announcing a new product, and the negativity, of some people. They're like, "Oh, gee, another whatever railroad and another Gevo or whatever," and it's like. I remember I actually did an episode on this, and I think actually Ray from Around the Layout had actually did a post or something about it as well, about people just don't, some people I should say, don't understand what, like you said, all the time and everything that goes into
Yeah,
it. It's
yeah.
hard.
It,
Unfortunately, you can't make everything for what everybody wants.
Well, and the other aspect of that too is in your comment about how a competitor will announce a new run of a Gevo or something, and everybody kind of complains about it. We get that with the big boy, in
Mhm.
which I understand that customers are looking for new things, but I'll tell you what: if everything that we've made in terms of locomotives sold as well as the big boys do, we would be having way more ideas and stuff coming out in a quicker fashion. What helps us though is by rerunning the big boy and rerunning those popular items that a lot of modelers and customers want, is it allows us to then put that profit that we get from a project like that, like our newest run of big boy, that the we just had the order deadline cancel, or not cancel, come to an end on January 30th.
Mhm.
We had some modified details to that, and we replicated the big boy on its most recent tour last summer. So it's got the PTC details on it, and the triple dynamo, and a lot of that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
And the interesting thing about that is, while that locomotive in particular has been very, very popular,
Mhm.
the tooling cost, since the locomotive itself has already been done, we had the tooling cost for it. It was very, very in terms of overall cost cheaper. It was a good project to add a couple of details on. It didn't cost us enough. It doesn't eat into our margins. So then
Right.
rerunning the big boy helps with making a Boston and Albany Berkshire, helps with making, these more business cars and that sort of thing. So it really adds. I understand where customers get annoyed because they want to see more stuff. I really do. As a
Mhm.
modeler and customer myself, I totally get it. But this is where it goes back to where I learned about why the manufacturing process is so important to know from a customer standpoint. Because yeah, they announce another big boy, they announce another Gevo, whatever you, but they're using that money that they make from that project to make something that you want down the road. And
Yep.
I think that's really important for a lot of customers to understand, instead of commenting on our Facebook page, oh, the market's already flooded with big boys.
Right.
Well, yes, I don't disagree with you, but they continue to sell out. On our previous run of big boys from last year,
Mhm.
we had 100 people that still didn't get a model because they had placed their order after the deadline. So
Ooh.
they were stuck waiting for a new production run. So now those 100 people will get a model from this current run that we're doing,
Mhm.
and plus more on top of that. And so, like I said earlier, if every project sold as a locomotive sold as well as the big boys do, or sold as well as a Gevo does for some of our competitors, or either other diesels or steam locomotives, then we'd have a lot more flexibility to keep adding more projects.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, it kind of leads into a little bit of everything, but the big point is that don't get too frustrated. Don't think that we're dumb for doing it again, because there's a reason behind we do everything. And I
Right.
think that's something to just keep in mind when you see these announcements and stuff come out.
Oh yeah, and I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, in my episode, like I said, I'm pretty sure that's what Ray. But I even backed Ray up with his comment or whatever his post was from Around the Layout. Is I'm like, a lot of people don't understand, like you had just said, the cost of just the tooling to change to do a new body style or a new locomotive or a rail car or whatever. And that tooling is, I know it's not cheap because I'm a semi truck and trailer mechanic, and apples to oranges, but I know how much money I have in my tools and special tools to do my job. I can't
Yeah,
imagine what tooling cost, CNC machine place to, make them and whatever your whole process is. And that's why I guess, I guess I feel in that episode that I said that I was really trying to step up for the manufacturers, because it's like, unless you really know what's behind the scenes, just if you don't like something, then just don't say it at all. Just move on to the next ad you see. And you guys always are putting out something new or a new ad. Wait until you find something you like.
Yeah. And like I said, there's always a reason for everything. I know any one of our competitors would tell you the same thing, that there's always a reason for that sort of stuff. But the tooling costs are expensive, and I mean, we get asked about, will we redo the California Zephyr, which
Mhm.
was a very popular train that we made several years ago. The tooling when we first made the train back, 10, 15 years ago, however long it was $1 million in total for the 13 car train. So you have the baggage car, each dome car, the sleepers, the diner, all that stuff. And for the entire train was about $1 million. If we were to redo that again with inflation and everything that's in there now, you're probably looking at the cost being almost 1 to 2 times of what it was then. And
Right.
people ask us, about the daylight set too. And as much as we'd love to do it, it's just so expensive for us right now.
Mhm.
It's more, if we're going to put that much money into tooling for a passenger train, it's more, we see more of a return of investing that money into doing a new locomotive than we do for an entire train. Or
Sure.
if we're going to do it, say committed to a train, to a full train set, it's easier for us to do, okay, let's do all the sleepers at once, and
Mhm.
then redo several runs of those, and then make some additional revenue on that. Okay, now
Mhm.
let's go to the next one, and let's do the dome cars next, and then from there you go on and go on.
Right.
It's more easier for us to do it that way than it is than doing an entire 13 car train set, where with the prices of everything now, you're probably not going to like what the MSRP would be, if I'm being
Right.
honest
Right.
with you. So it's just, again, like I was saying, it's just important to keep in mind that there are reasons for that sort of stuff. And it really goes into looking into, we are a business. As much as we want to give everybody every model that they ever could dream of, we
Mhm.
are a business. These things take time. It costs a lot of money, um, and that sort of thing. And
Right.
one of the common questions I get is, what makes you determined to do a locomotive as a brass hybrid versus a die-cast model? And the business side is the cost. In some cases, if it's a more niche locomotive and the parts are not very commonly out there for us to use,
Mhm.
instead of spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to tool it, we can offer it as a brass hybrid where there's more parts readily available, and we can make it at a lower cost. Like the big example is the PRRS1 that we're coming out with later on this year. It is more cost effective for us to have our factory uh, hand make the boilers and the tender shells
Mhm.
than it is to do a die cast tool of that entire model, and have essentially them fill it up and mold it from that way, and then go on and go
Right.
forth. Um, so there's a lot of factors to it. Some people think we do it because it's a way to get more of a cash grab. Not necessarily. It's a lot of factors that go into it. Like I've been preaching for the last 3 minutes
Right.
or so here. Yeah, but you get it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I get it. I mean, I've never the closest brass piece I've ever owned has been like a 40-foot flat car that I think I bought at a train show or something, because I was like, oh, let's try brass. And I mean, I've got right now on my layout, I've got four SD40. They're CP actually. I know our listeners can't see this, but we're on a video talking here, and if you look over my head, they're the CP red ones. Um, and I like the fact that, okay, it's a it's a plastic shell, but the grills and the fan grills and all that, they're it's actually brass, and they're really well detailed. And to be honest with you, I'm happy with the way it is. And for the price point, it was perfect. I couldn't have been happier at the price point for all the detail that's there, plus
Yeah.
sounds and everything else, you know. And so, no, I can't say it enough. Like I said, I've been a BLI fan for a long time. So, I'm excited to be able to be talking to you. Um, so I guess, let's kind of move, on a couple questions. And I'm going to run these two questions together. So, do you have a scale you model in? And you kind of touched on this, but how long have you been a model railroader? Probably like a lot
Uh,
of us, right?
yeah, I'm 30, and my earliest memories of model railroading are with my dad in our house in the suburbs of Chicago. Um, we had two different home layouts. In the first one, I had the HO scale. For to answer your first question, HO scale is the scale that I've got mainly everything of.
Mhm.
Um, but the big thing was my dad was a big Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy modeler and fan, and I am of the Santa Fe fans. So I like Santa Fe a lot. I right now mainly focus on trying to collect stuff around like 1988 to like the pre-merger, so between 1988 and 1995. I don't have a home layout, like I said, but a lot of my earliest memories were probably around 5 or 6 years old. I wasn't a Thomas, as I think most kids who were getting into the hobby were getting into Thomas, and then I probably grew out of Thomas maybe around like 5 or 6 or 7 years old, and because I liked the real ones that went by my house. I lived right off of a metro line, so I saw a lot of metro trains growing up, and I saw a lot of Union Pacific trains growing up too. So I saw a lot of that. But I always liked the Santa Fe, the red and silver war bonnet, the super fleet paint
Yep.
scheme of the GP60s and F45s, and all that stuff was always very eye catching to me. But I loved just the history of the Santa Fe, and my dad and I both incorporated a little bit of that into our home layouts for that. And he was a big, like I said, Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy fan, and he had the full Broadway Limited California Zephyr, and he had the matching F3s and the matching E units to go with it, and amongst other things too. So yeah, I would say probably 25-ish years of my life, maybe a little bit more
Mhm.
of that. But I was, like I said, into Thomas for those first few years.
Sure. Sure, and speaking of Santa Fe, I've always been a Santa Fe fan. My first train set was I don't remember what it was when I was, like, 5 years old. It was the Santa Fe, I think it was an F7 war bonnet, and
Hmm.
I've always liked them, as well. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but, my good buddy Eric, he is actually and that's the train show I'm gonna be at, well, by the time this comes out, I was at last weekend, um, but he's building a 1-inch scale GP60M,
Oh,
a Santa
cool.
Fe, yeah, um, and, if you're interested, it's War Bonds on YouTube is his
Okay,
yeah, he's,
I'll have to look that
very
up. Yeah.
but, so it's kind of fun, even though I've like my railroad, I'm modeling the Kansas City Southern. It's proto freelance. Kansas City Southern for me was always kind of my second favorite railroad. So
Hmm.
I figured this layout this time around, I want to do that because my last one was BNSF Santa Fe, like that, right around that merger. So
Yeah.
I get the Santa Fe, backing,
Yeah, when it comes time to, hopefully I get a piece of property that has a nice sizable space for a layout. I would love to tailor it more. I like the Southern California region.
Mhm,
My two favorite routes of the Santa Fe that I've always kind of just grew up looking at and researching at has been Cajon Pass
mhm,
and the Pacific Surfliner route, or the San Diego sub from LA to San Diego.
mhm,
Um, and I like I like the San Diego sub. I think probably the most because of Phase 3 Amtrak is my favorite version of Amtrak,
mhm.
so I get that. And then you also get the mixture of F40s. You get the Dash 8s that Amtrak had, and then I'm trying to get us to do some Amtrak equipment at some point that would go along the surf line perfectly or really well, but I haven't gotten to convince Matt to do it yet. So
Right.
that's on my bucket list of something I want to try to convince him to do.
Sure.
But yeah, I always loved the surf line. I think the the scenery of taking the train and looking out your window and then there's the ocean and there's the beach, I think is really, really cool. And also seeing Cajon Pass when you get, you know, a little bit of mountain climbing where you got helper service and stuff like that. And then you get over the hill, get past Summit towards Victorville and Barstow. And it's, you know, you're going 65, 70 ish plus miles
Right.
an hour on a freight train or something. So you get a little bit of the best of both worlds on that. At least for me, you get the best of both worlds with that.
Right. So, next question we have is, what is your favorite part of the hobby, would you say? Or some people can't even pick one, you know?
That's a good question. If I had to pick one, I think honestly it could be a bit of the camaraderie that you meet with people. And I think everybody has some really cool, unique experience that you just don't see, or like you could really take advantage of, like learning about from people. Um, there's been several guys that I've met over the years that have all been incredible resources. Like, hey, when the city of San Francisco ran in 1970 whatever or 1968, what was the consist typically, you know, and they'd be able to list it off just like that, you know, or whatever, if you wanted to model something, or if you had a question as to, hey, what cars are on this train, you know, they'll be able to tell you the whole process of how, where this car originates, where, you know, what it's carrying, you know, all that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
So the wealth of knowledge that you can get from people in the hobby is fantastic. There's nothing else like it, in my opinion. And I think the other thing is that the creative expression that you get from building a layout, where you get a little bit of your carpentry skills in there, and then you get to actually add the details and the scenery and stuff, and you can kind of make it however you want. It's your layout, it's your railroad, you know, your rules essentially.
Yeah.
I like seeing the creative aspect of what people come up with, and some people like to model a full region of something, or some people, you know, do it freelance and it's fictional towns and fictional yards and industries and whatnot, and it all makes sense and it's all good and fun, and that's also a good way to go about it. So I think those are probably my two favorite things about the hobby.
Mm. I would, honestly, I think if I would have been asked that question, I think I would have answered probably the same. The camaraderie and just the ability to pretty much be able to do whatever you want in a
Yeah,
sense, within the restrictions of the items you purchase to do it.
yeah, absolutely.
Well, before we head to break, we got well, let's move on to this next question. Any advice you would give someone coming into the hobby, or maybe they are new, just freshly new to the hobby?
Freshly new to the hobby. I mean, it's typical to say that you could get a starter set and do something. I would say if you want to just run trains, I think joining a club is a good start. And I think if you join a club and you want to run trains, you can learn from people at that club, and you can learn from people about all that sort of stuff. I also recommend going to a train show, seeing what other seeing what the products are out there like, and see if any of that interests you. But also, two, it's a good opportunity to gain inspiration for what you like and what you don't like, what you want to incorporate. I know guys that have gotten into the hobby and they didn't want to start building a full layout and doing the investment, but they loved the idea of doing modules, and
Mhm.
so they got purchased a module for $500, and they liked the idea of joining a club and then learning from that. And it's a easily able to store it in different places and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of different aspects that you can go about it. But I would say, one, um, learn about what you like and what you don't like. That's the first thing. And then also, like I said, don't be afraid to join a club, whether it be a big club layout that's already got their layout pre-built and then you just put your train on the track and run, or you join a module group, or some other thing like that. It's kind of dependent upon what you're interested in. But there's a lot of different ways to get started. And if you're looking to just get started, there's tons of starter sets that are out there available too, that you could easily, get for a relatively good price and set it up on a 4x8 or whatever, and go from there.
Right. That's actually really, really good advice. I never thought of it that way before. One thing that popped into my mind while you were talking about that is I'd like to add to that is a lot of people, especially new or coming in or looking at coming in the hobby. I want to run trains. I see this layout. I see that layout that's, beautiful and I want it to look like that. But do you really want that? Because I'm sure you know as well as I do on like me even building this railroad over 2 years so far, and I'm not even close to being done. I've already changed a few things and changed concept a little bit over the last 2 years. And just because there's something you like coming in doesn't mean I'm not going to say you're not going to like it down the road, but that
Yeah,
taste may change. And I like what you said about joining a club because it gets you in there. And yes, you learn, but you can also learn about maybe your taste changed because you like operations more, or maybe you want to just have rail fan your own railroad kind of setup.
yeah.
I like that. I'd never heard that aspect before, so that's a very, very good point.
Yeah, just adding on to that too. One my personal experience, not for when I got started, but the reason why I suggest joining a club is because when I moved from the suburbs into Chicago, the city of Chicago, for my radio job,
Mhm,
I had no recollection or known of any clubs in the area in downtown Chicago, and I found one, Garfield Clarendon Model Railroad Club, located on the north side of the city, and what I found is from joining is that a lot of the guys there, they have like usually a work session day or something like that,
mhm,
and going to those work session days and participating and learning from them. This is why you solder the wire on the rail, and this is why, or this is how you can properly ballast your track to make it look realistic, and all those little things are great areas to learn the different skill sets that you need to get into whatever your future might hold. Or it's also just a good way to learn, and then when you eventually decide you want to build your own layout, great. Or if you decide to be a member there for a while, then you know what, they'll ask you, hey, why don't you go lay this track or do whatever, and then you can go off and do it on your own, and you can help and be part of a team,
right,
and go hang out with the guys afterwards and grab a couple beers or something like that, and
right.
like I said, the camaraderie thing. So there's a lot of different reasons for it, and I think it helps when you have a good group of guys that are willing to teach you,
Mhm,
which sometimes you don't find very often, unfortunately. But there are groups out there that will do that, and they'll walk you through the process, and that's
right.
why I think it's a good way to start.
Sure, sure. All right, on that note, we are going to take a break, and when we come back, we will have Curtis. We'll continue our conversation with Curtis, so stick around because we'll be back shortly.
Attention, model railroaders. Broadway Limited Imports is proud to support the Model Railroad Talk podcast, and they've got some exciting new projects rolling in for both HO and N-Scale. Fresh off the big announcement at the Railroad Hobby Show in Springfield, Massachusetts, BLI is bringing you the legendary Boston and Albany A1A Berkshire steam locomotive in stunning HO scale. Part of their premium brass hybrid series, this masterpiece features Paragon 4 sound and DCC, delivering top-tier realism and performance. Don't miss out. Place your order with your favorite dealer by July 10th to lock in the guaranteed delivery for spring 2026.
Are you interested in operations? Are you new to operations? Are you a seasoned operator? Consider joining the Operations Special Interest Group, or OPSIG. The OPSIG is an organization dedicated to operations from the experienced operator to the novice. Their principal purpose is to discuss, develop, and disseminate ways of operating model railroads to realistically emulate practices of the prototype. This includes sharing information on various methods of generating, moving, and controlling traffic to heighten the feeling that our models are an active and integral part of the national rail transportation network, serving shippers and consignees throughout the nation. Their membership is a tremendous resource to exchange information and ideas and to develop improved ways for hobbyists to learn the art and science of operating a railroad in a particular model railroad. Their quarterly publication, The Dispatcher's Office, is another great resource. It's loaded with articles about operations, including paperwork, planning, execution, and hosting of sessions. Annual membership is only $10 per year, Membership includes 4 issues of the Dispatcher's Office e-version, access to their Dispatcher's Office archives, an industry database to help add realism to your operations, and a directory of operating layouts across the country. If you like to operate or are just becoming aware of this exciting and growing part of the hobby, this is the place. All are welcome. You can find them at www.opsig.org. That's www.opsig. And we are back. We still have Curtis from Broadway Limited on with us, and we are going to continue our conversation. So moving on, how long have you been with Broadway Limited?
I've been there for just about 2 years. It'll be 2 years officially in April.
Oh,
Actually, yeah, April will be officially 2 year mark for me being at BLI.
sure. And you talked about this before. I don't know if maybe you want to go into it a little more, but you are the director of marketing and social media, and you kind of talked about you get to do a little more besides that. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about on that
The
or add
the
to
big
that?
thing is, well, the big thing is I help with a lot of the marketing and stuff, obviously, for our products. And the other aspect I do is a lot of product research. But also, I'm a go to a lot of shows with Ken Silvestri and Matt Williamson. We were just at Amherst a couple of weeks ago, and that was a huge show, big turnout. 27,000 people were at that show.
Wow.
Really, really good to hear those numbers. And when people say that the hobby's dying, I think you can just point to Amherst and say, no, it ain't, and go on from there. But no, the other thing is I'm also doing a lot of outreach. So I'm going to Train World or Train Land in a couple of weeks here in February, and then I'm also doing events at Midwest Model Railroad in Independence, Missouri, and then I'm also going to Rocky Mountain Train Supply, where basically when you see me at these places, you'll get a glimpse as to what new products we have coming out. You'll see some new samples. You'll get to ask me questions about anything, and basically just enjoy yourself at the hobby shop. And I'm always open to doing that. So if you're a hobby shop owner and you're looking to have me stop by or do an event like that, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll see if we can get something scheduled and worked out. But other than that, though, that's a small summary of what I do. There's a lot of other stuff that I do as well, but like I said, we'd be spending way too much time answering that question. But just to give you an idea of what I do, yeah, that's a good summary of it.
Oh, okay. So next question is actually, what is your favorite aspect, or maybe you have more than one aspect, your favorite aspects of working for Broadway Limited?
I love being able to take my experience as a customer and implement it into some of our products. So the Kenefic car, for example, like I said, was my idea that we could do and a design, and I helped do the research on it and everything. But one of the examples that I've been able to contribute to us has been we should be matching like the paint on the Walthers cars, for example, and that was something that we were on board with, because a lot of people who model the Union Pacific excursion trains, myself included, there's a need to, especially around UP yellow, there's a niche about making sure that the yellow is the correct color and all this. And our goal in doing so to copy the Walthers cars was, I know some guys will come up and complain that the shade is slightly off or whatnot, and to make sure that for us and for customers, you have one steady stream of yellow and gray on your UP
Mhm.
excursion train. So coming up with ideas to match the paint and to incorporate different details and stuff like that is some of the things that I like to enjoy contributing to. Also along with helping create some really nice looking ads and materials and stuff, and getting the chance to work with a lot of the magazines. You mentioned, Ray Arnott, so going on podcasts and doing stuff like this. A lot of it too. Let me put it this way: there's not something at work that I don't enjoy, to put it
Right.
that way. You're working for a model train company, it's your biggest hobby. It's a very fun job. It is in a way a dream job for
Mhm.
you. But it's meant to be fun, and it is fun. And there are sure stressful times, especially when for most of the myself and our competitors too. The busiest time is probably between October and probably March. That's usually our busy time of the modeling season, because once it gets into spring and summer, people are going out, enjoying the beach, going out on their boats, going to different street festivals, and they're spending time going out doing bonfires, whatever people like to do for fun in the summer, hiking, whatever. And the time gets taken away from your layout a little bit. I guess unless you're going through like a 110-degree heat wave or something, and you need to cool off, then that's a good way to do it. But
Right.
but anyways, the busy time for us is always a very, very stressful time, but it's not the sort of stress where like, oh, if I don't get this thing done, it's going to ruin you. It's just, you got so much to do, and you got some time to do it, but it's nothing like filling out a spreadsheet. It's just, checking details on a model before we go with making the renders. It's getting artwork in time to the magazine, so that way they have it on time for their publications and stuff like that. So it's a different form of it, but it's a good fun aspect of getting to work in the hobby for sure.
So talking about that, you hear a lot of people, or at least I've talked to people about, if they could do this full time, they would love it, but then they would, but if they were doing it full time, they'd be like, you might get sick of doing it. I'm not saying obviously you're not sick of working at Broadway Limited, because what you just stated, but I mean, are there times where do you feel that it takes away from, like, and I know you don't have a layout, but you still are collecting and in some aspect, and you have the railroad club you're at. Do you find that doing it day in and day out, does it affect your outside of working for Broadway Model
Um,
Railroad at all?
that's a good question. I don't, at least for me personally, no. I would say the one thing that um, is a bit of a struggle is that, especially because of me being more in the public eye amongst customers and stuff. All the guys at my club know that I work for Broadway, and I go to the club, and I can almost never avoid any questions about, like, what something we're doing, or what something somebody else is doing, or what have you. There's always a conversation about us or somebody else, competitor wise, involved in there in some aspect. And for me, it's hard uh, to enjoy it from the aspect of I just want to run trains.
Right.
If you want to ask me questions about stuff, I'm more than happy to answer questions. But I want to do it at a train show when I'm working.
Mhm.
Here I just want to run trains. And that can be a little bit of a challenge sometimes. But to be honest, it doesn't really bother me as much as I think it would have bothered me when
Mhm.
I first took the job. Knowing what I know now, and everything that I've been doing in my career so far, I don't think um, I don't think there's been a time where I haven't felt that I just want to enjoy this without talking to anybody. I mean, I can't
Right.
do that because I don't have a basement to build my own layout, or whatever. But I do enjoy the camaraderie. There's a lot of a good mix of people at the club that I'm a part of in Orlando, and they're all super friendly and very talkative, and just fun people to be around. So when you're in a good environment like that, I don't think that the asking questions about are you guys considering doing this, or are you guys going to do that, or do you have an idea of why this locomotive is acting this way, or what have you. Like, I don't mind answering those questions when the environment itself is a healthy environment. But
Right.
there are times where it's just kind of like, okay, I need to just, if I want to do something train involved, like I'm a big video game guy too.
Mhm.
I've got games like Railroader and Run 8 Train Simulator, and other things like that, where I can still enjoy it, but I'm not in a setting where I have to be Curtis from Broadway. I can
Right.
be, Curtis at home, enjoying a Coca-Cola, or enjoying a beer or whatever, and just running trains, and that sort of thing. So there are healthy spaces for me to kind of separate that. But other than that, though, I don't think I've had any experiences where I felt like that it was too much, so to speak.
Yeah. So, yeah, but you have to admit though, like you said, there are times where it's like you just want to just let me run trains. That's kind of your
Yeah.
zen. It's like, let me have my zen at least for a little bit, and
Yeah,
then
exactly.
all right. So we're gonna move on to. I'm gonna skip one question here. And we'll come back to it. What is your favorite railroad or era to model, or do you have one? I know you. I guess now that I said it, you said the Santa Fe.
Yeah,
Talked about
those
that.
so those two are the big things, but I do kind of break away from that. Like I've got a full morning daylight train set with the GS4. I've got the Super Chief, the Walthers Super Chief with BLI-F units. I've got the El Capitan from Walthers with BLI motive power for that. I've got a Blue Goose. I mean, I've gone outside of, even though the realm of which I would focus building a layout around would be 1988 to
Mhm.
94 Santa Fe style. I do break outside of that mold a little bit and enjoy other things too. So I mean, yeah, the big thing is the Union Pacific excursion train I was talking about. That's another reason why I liked making those cars, was because I also have the Walthers cars, and a 3985 and an 844 and that sort of stuff, and building up that train. My dad and I actually got to ride behind Challenger 3985. It came to Chicago in 2002, and we got tickets in the dome car, one of the dome cars, and 8-year-old me, I was not able to. One of my dad likes telling this story where I was not tall enough to like look out the vestibule baggage card door, so I had to stand on my dad's feet. And as a 8-year-old, probably wearing anywhere between 70 to 80 pounds,
Mhm.
and stepping on your dad's toes to look out the window of
Right.
the open door baggage car of that train. That was always really fun, and uh, doing things like that. Um, but yeah, so I break out of that mold. I don't stick to, even though I do focus on that one era, I do break in and out of it for other things that I think is cool. And like we were saying earlier, your railroad, your rules, that sort of thing. So that's what I stick with. So yeah, like I said, I do break that mold too. I've got Milwaukee Road stuff too, which is a little out there compared to being a Santa Fe guy. But again, I rode behind Milwaukee Road 261. It was in Wisconsin, and we lived 30 minutes from the Wisconsin border, so it was a quick drive up to Wisconsin to go ride that steam train, and got to ride in a coach car, and we stood in the vestibule, and then at the end of the trip, I got coal cinders in my hair because the locomotive's a coal burner, and had to have goggles on because the coal cinders would have punched you in the face
Oh
in
wow.
a way with how you're riding on that thing. So um, yeah, it overall was things like that. I break out of it, but that's mainly where I stick to most of my collecting and model railroading.
Oh, that's cool. And there again, it's you have some people, and if this is how you are, you stick to what you model and you don't go outside of it. That's perfectly fine. But there again, come to those coming into the hobby or new to the hobby, you might have your eyes, your goals set on a certain era or certain railroad, but it doesn't mean you can't have those extra pieces that maybe help your memory and bring back and remember those great memories.
Yeah, there was a guy at a club I was a part of previously that had said, "Focus on one thing and stick to it. Don't get too wrapped up in collecting other stuff." And I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, it's your hobby. If you want to collect it because you like it, then do it. Who's to tell you no? Essentially, is kind of like the mindset of that. But yeah, I think either way, whatever people choose to do it because you like it to do it, not because somebody's telling you to do it.
Exactly.
If somebody's telling you, "Oh, you should model Union Pacific," do you like Union Pacific, or do you like Southern Pacific, or do you like Western Pacific, or do you like New York Central or Pennsylvania Railroad? Whatever thing you might like, um, and focus on that. I know a friend of mine who has collected all of these different streamlined trains in their entirety. So he's got like the Broadway Limited, the 20th Century Limited, Super Chief, the City of Los Angeles, the Shasta Daylight, like all these different streamliners that he likes because they look cool, and he decided to get it, and why not? And so he's got hundreds of named trains, or not hundreds, that's maybe a bit of an exaggeration, but
Right.
he's got a lot of different named streamlined passenger trains and other things too. And that's when he said he builds his railroad, that's what he wants to do is stick to a passenger corridor
Mhm.
and that sort of thing. There would be some freight stuff too, he said, but he likes to stick to the passenger trains because he likes to run it and at a prototypical way and do a fast clock and get a timetable set up and kind of do that thing and try to. It's fun to stick to that. I can relate to that. I enjoy running passenger trains myself too. But
Sure.
anyways, that's that's kind of a good way to wrap up that part without rambling too much.
Right. No, I understand. So do you, other than like the experiences you were just told us being able to ride behind those excursion trains, do you have any other fun real railroading experiences you'd like to share?
Yeah, I've got a few. So, like I said, growing up in Chicago, I grew up in the northwest suburbs. So, I was about a 30-minute. I was about a 30-minute drive to the Wisconsin border, but I also was about a 30-minute drive to the Illinois Railway Museum,
Mhm.
which is a fantastic museum. If you ever get the chance to go, check it out. Go on their website and look. Make sure you find a good weekend where they're doing a bunch of stuff because they have a lot of really fun things. Um, the Illinois Railway Museum is a great museum, and I know I'm biased to it because I went there hundreds of times growing up between my young youth and all the way up until probably 3 or 4 years ago before I moved down here. So they have a lot of fun stuff, a lot of really cool pieces of equipment. I loved going to their museum. The only other real railroad experience I had besides going to the different museums and such was my parents for my high school graduation. They gifted me a program that was called Throttle Time, and it's with a museum in Monticello, Illinois. And basically, for an hour, you get to drive one of their trains on their
Cool.
property. And yeah, and there's a guy there that teaches you how to do it and watch over you while you're doing it. And so there's a few things like that was really fun and standoutish besides the excursion trains, of course.
Mhm.
But that's the only other real railroad experience I've had besides that, and it was cool. It's very fun to see the big thing and get to experience that.
Mhm.
I mean, I've ridden Amtrak a few times too, but not from um, not like in a sleeper or anything. We actually most recently was around Thanksgiving. We took Amtrak from Chicago up to Minnesota. My fiance is originally from Minnesota, so we went up there for Thanksgiving. And we took Amtrak's Borealis, which was
Oh,
their new train that they run, and that was the first time I'd ridden Amtrak since I was probably maybe 11 or 12 years old. So first time in at least a decade that I've ridden Amtrak, and it was cool to get that experience. But yeah, it's always fun to experience the real thing when you can.
right. I say for me, the closest I've ever had is years and years ago. I worked at a steel mill, and there was a couple times I got to run the track mobile, to pulling coil cars in and out, and that was like
Yeah,
moving one car. And I was into railroading, and everything, and I was like, yeah. And then I look back on it, I'm like, I moved one car, but hey, I can at least say I
that's
moved a rail car,
I was gonna say that's one car more than the rest of everybody listening to this
Right.
podcast, or whatever.
Right. All right. Before we get on to the last two questions, while we're still on, I guess, I, I guess I want to make sure you are able to list any or tell anybody about any big announcements for Broadway.
Good question. So, January, this past month at Amherst, the Big E show in West Springfield, Massachusetts, we announced the HO scale Boston and Albany Berkshires. That was a brass hybrid model. If you go on our website, Broadway-limited.com, you'll see our graphic artist, Stephen Wilder, has a software program where he creates these 3D renders of what the model looks like, and they look awesome. So if you get the chance to go on and look to get a glimpse of that, it's really cool looking steam locomotive. Mainly served out in the East Coast. Like I said, Boston and Albany is in the name, but There is a Lima Locomotive Works demonstrator locomotive that you could get, and then also Illinois Central purchased the demonstrator locomotive, and it was numbered 7050, so you could purchase that as well. But those locomotives are really, really nice. And then for those of you who out there are N scalers, a lot of N scalers have been asking, and we finally have it announced. We've got the N scale Baldwin RF16 shark nose locomotives. Those will come in sound and stealth as well, and you'll be able to get multiple prototypical road names, including Delaware and Hudson and New York Central, Baltimore and Ohio and PRR, all with road specific details on them. And I think N scalers are really going to love that locomotive, or those locomotives. And again, if you run DCC, you can get our Paragon 4 stuff, or sometimes some customers all want their diesels to have Tsunami or Loc sound, which is why Stealth is a great option, because Stealth, you have the speaker already installed, and all you have to do is just pop off the shelf, plug on your aftermarket decoder of choice, and put the shell back on, and you're good to go. You just have to program it, and you'll be good to go from there. So Stealth provides a great option. It's also a little bit cheaper of an option too, but you still get the same level of detail. So if any of those models interest you, go ahead and on our website and check it out. We've got other stuff coming in the works too. We'll have a couple of new announcements later on this month of February. So stay tuned to our social media platforms for that. And then our next round of announcements will take place in April at the Rocky Mountain Train Show. So for those of you who are listening in Colorado, if you want to come out to the show and see it and get a glimpse of what the announcement is, I think a lot of you guys will like it. And on top of that too, I will be in Arvada, Colorado at the Rocky Mountain Train Supply, which is a big dealer hobby shop up there. We always love supporting the dealers and local hobby shops, because we get a ton of great dealers that work through us and are able to get you models at really good prices. So we'll be with them on Thursday, April 3rd. You can see me. You can get a glimpse of what our new announcement is. You'll see some new samples. So please stop by. We'll have that published, more information coming at a later date. But just to mark your calendars, save the date, if you will, for that event. And we'll have, like I said, a good fun time with all of that. And Midwest Model Railroad, I mentioned too, we're going out there June 14th. So that's a Saturday. So if you're in the Kansas City area or in the state of Missouri and want to make a trip out of it, you'll have a blast. Midwest Model Railroad is a great store, great location, and big selection of inventory. So I'm sure you'd be able to leave with something for sure. And then Train World also, like I said, February 22nd. I'll be at the store virtually almost all day with some new samples, talking to customers, etc. So please feel free to stop by and say hi to me there if you're in the vicinity of able to make it out to Train World too. But a lot of fun stuff coming up. So like I said, if you go on our social media pages, Broadway Limited on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or not Twitter, X now, I guess. But anyways, any of those social media platforms, YouTube, please feel free to check back there. We're most active on Facebook and Instagram, though. So if you are looking for the latest updates on stuff like that, please go to there and check us out. And we'll be sure to get you more information as we get them provided to us.
Sure. Now, I have one quick question, because I personally have actually I've seen locomotives that were only available in Stealth because the Paragon was sold out or what have you. Now, are the Stealth, are they like, is it DCC still? Like, can I buy that, set it on run it DCC, or do I have to put a decoder, whether it be sound?
You have to put a decoder in it. So Stealth is essentially DCC ready. So you get the same level of detail. There's a speaker installed, like I said, and there's a 21 pin board. So you would just purchase your 21 pin ESU decoder, TCS decoder, or a Tsunami decoder. And it's literally plug and play. So you can plug in your decoder, put the shell back on, you're good to go. There are some lighting functions that would be different. So you would just have to make sure that you would check with your decoder and check. There's a sheet that comes in the box that'll tell you which lighting functions work with which decoder. So you can find that there. But if you happen to have a Stealth model and you lost that sheet, you can go on our website, BroadwayLimited.com, and there's a tech support tab with Stealth information. You can go on there too and find it. And then for N scalers, for those of you wondering about Stealth, it's Next 18. We use Next 18 boards in our N scale steam and diesel. So that'd be what you would want to look for too when it comes to that.
Sure. And one last thing on the Broadway Limited side, I know this is. I want to say I first seen this within the last year, roughly. You guys started the Conductors Club, is that right, or has it been
Yeah.
for a while? You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So the Conductors Club, we announced that at Amherst last year,
Okay.
in 2024, and basically what the club is it's a way for us to give customers some models that instead of doing some big re-releases on stuff, like people ask us for some Penzi seamers we've done in the past, where we already have the tooling for it. It allows us to remake those models in a limited run, but make them at a really really good price point. And basically, the club itself is $30 for the year, and it automatically renews. So if you want to try it out for 1 year and see, and then just make a note of when you purchased it,
Mhm.
and then you can email us. And if you choose to cancel, we'd be more than happy to do that. But I think if you want to become a member, you're probably going to want to stay a member because there's a lot of really awesome perks that come with it. So, like I said, we have an exclusive HO and N scale locomotive offering that we announce once a year.
Mhm.
There's usually a quarterly newsletter that comes out. So customers who are curious what we're working on, they get a behind the scenes and more in-depth look at projects we're working on, when we think things will be out,
Mhm.
that sort of stuff. It's a great newsletter for members. If you go on our website too, you'll also get an additional 10% off our outlet store. So if you go on our website, BroadwayLimited.com, you'll go on the outlet store tab on the far right of the screen, and you click on that. You'll already see some models on there that are for sale at a discounted price.
Mhm.
Uh, Members would get an additional 10% off of that. So basically, it almost covers shipping, if you will,
Oh, wow.
in that aspect, which is nice. The other thing, too, that the club provides is additional 1 year warranty on all Broadway Limited products that you have purchased, new products that we've announced and that you've purchased
Mhm.
from the beginning of 2024 onwards. So if you put in a pre-order for the Boston and Albany Berkshires that we announced at Amherst, when those come in, you would automatically get a year warranty from when they come in and when you would get it in your hands. But if you're a member, you get an additional year. So that 1 year
Oh, wow.
membership or 1 year warranty becomes 2 years. So you would just have to make it known when you have to send a model back in. Hey, I'm a Conductors Club member. Here's my membership number, and the guys will make a note of that, and then you'll be good to go from there. We're also doing members only gatherings with BLI staff.
Mhm.
And another really cool thing too is we actually have a product suggestion portal for everybody. But if you leave a note that you're a Conductors Club member with your membership number,
Mhm.
we will actually take more product suggestions from members more seriously, and more, I shouldn't say seriously, more, they'll move up the priority list, I guess is what I'm
Sure.
trying to say, is that they'll get heavily considered more likely into production at a quicker time
Mhm.
if we have a bunch of members that want a particular model. So if a
Sure.
bunch of members want a PRR T1, okay, great. Well, now we can look at maybe offering that as a potential re-release or as something to newly tool, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of different perks to that. You can find that full list on our website, BroadwayLimited.com, Broadway-Limited.com. And then, of course, make sure you just go under and you'll see that it's a $30 annual membership fee. But the perks are really great. And you'll be the first to know on a lot of really cool things and get some behind the scenes glimpses into that. Our HO and N scale locomotives that we have right now that people can place a pre order in is the General Electric ES44. So we were just talking about GEVOs earlier. So we've got some really cool schemes. We've got the CPKC scheme,
Mhm.
that new one where it's mostly red with the white lettering and it's got the gold and black stripes on the back. And then we've also got two additional CSX heritage units in the ES44. So we've got the Western Maryland and we've got the Georgia Railroad.
Mhm.
So those two we've got. And also we're doing Union Pacific, and it's a pink ribbon scheme. Union Pacific had it to make a tribute to breast cancer and
Mhm.
breast cancer awareness and supporting those who have suffered from the disease. So it's a really cool locomotive if you're looking to get a tribute to somebody or get it for yourself just because you like it or what have you. It's a
Sure.
great opportunity to get a good locomotive at a great price. Both available in Stealth and Paragon 4. So
Mhm.
you can pick and choose which one you want. And the only thing that we ask is that because of us trying to reserve these for you to get a good number, we ask that you place a $50 deposit plus shipping. You pay for that now. and then you'll be invoiced the balance in the sales tax rather, prior to shipping, and these will be shipping this fall.
Oh,
So those will be coming in soon. But an HO ES44 with Paragon 4 sound and smoke, $200, $199.99 is the price we're asking for people. And then if you wanted to get the no sound version to add in your own decoder, $129.99. And these are brand new models, so you can't find really a better deal out there for brand
oh,
new models like this. So it's a really great opportunity, and that's what makes it exclusive and fun, is because the $30 membership fee, people get kind of annoyed because it's like, oh, you're offering it behind a paywall, but you're not going to get it for $199.99 or $129.99. It's really the best way for you to get a good bang for your buck on some new models. And there's a lot of other stuff we've got in the pipe works that'll be coming out for members. So I suggest, if you haven't done so already, consider signing up and see if it interests you at all, because it's not always going to be a steam locomotive. It's not always going to be a diesel locomotive that we announce as the club locos. It's always going to be different. So
right.
always a cool thing to see when club members get to see what the new locomotives are, and we get emails all the time. Oh, these are awesome! Can't wait for these, and that sort of thing. And like I said, the price is unbeatable. So if you're considering it, like I said, look into it. I think it'll be really worth your while.
Sounds like it. I'm interested. I'm already there, so probably be actually signing up for that right as soon as we're done recording this episode. All right. Of course, I always like to ask this. You know, we talk a lot, obviously, about trains. That's model railroad talk, and but is besides model railroading, is there anything else you're interested in? I know you said you're a gamer.
Yeah, I love playing video games with friends. I For Christmas I got a PlayStation 5, so I've been playing Spider-Man on that. That's been a lot of fun. I've been a big computer gamer too. I've got several different train sims on a computer. I've got you can't see it from the viewers at home, but I've got a desktop throttle stand. It's called a Rail Driver.
Yeah.
So you can actually use the controls while you're playing the game, which is fun. And then I'm a big Chicago sports fan. Again, people at home can't see, but I've got a Blackhawks
Yep.
poster thing here behind me. And then on the far side out of frame is a Chicago Cubs 2016 World Series championship poster. And I've got other sports memorabilia at home or here at the house too. And like I said, I covered Chicago sports for a few years for radio. So that was very fun. I got a lot of really cool, unique little sports memorabilia things from being able to work in that. And I got to work with, if you're a Bears fan, you probably know the name Dan Hampton very well. He's a former 85 Bear in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I got to work with him covering Bears games. And I got to, if you ever watch any sports games and you see the reporters holding their hand and the microphone in front of their faces, when I was covering the Blackhawks, I was essentially one of those guys that had their hands in front of these players' faces after games and stuff. Yeah, so that was really fun too. But overall, yeah, that's sort of the big things that I'm into. And my fiance and I are both Disney people too, so we go to the parks every once in a while. We were just recently at Animal Kingdom a couple days ago. We got to see the baby Sumatran tiger. Named Boxo, I believe is how it's pronounced. So we got to see him, and that was really cute and really cool. Yeah, that's about it. Big pet guy. We got 2 cats here at the house, but I love dogs. I grew up with German Shepherds, so I love animals. Yeah, that's a pretty big summary of what I'm into. Besides working on model trains and everything.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Final question. I guess basically, is there anything else you would like to add or talk about or throw in there before we end this episode?
Yeah, just thanks for the opportunity to come on, and thanks for allowing us to work together. And I hope, like I said, the winner of the giveaway is going to enjoy the prize and be able to put it to good use. And again, just appreciate the opportunity, love the conversation, and look forward to doing it again someday.
Well, I can tell you, I certainly appreciate you guys taking the time to even email me back and work with my podcast. And I'm excited for the future, and hopefully we can continue to do these kind of things. Broadway Limited and us, and like I said in the emails, Curtis, you're always welcome to come on to the show whenever you would like to and talk about obviously Broadway Limited stuff or whatever you would like.
Awesome. I appreciate that, and I look forward to it. It'll be a fun time as always.
All right. Well, until the next time we see you, thanks for coming on here.
Thanks for having me.
Well, there you go, folks. Curtis from Broadway Limited, their director of marketing and social media. And as you heard yourself, he does lots of other things too. So it always amazes me of what these manufacturers go through and what the process is for coming up with a model. I mean, us as the end user, it's easy to think, oh, well, they just send it to wherever and, a machine pops all this stuff out and they put it together and put it in a box and send it to us, right? Well, it's not quite like that. There's a lot of planning, a lot of back and forth and design and decisions being made of what's the best model um, to do right now and all that good stuff as you heard. So please check them out. Limited. Their website is Broadway-limited .com, and also check out their Conductors Club as well. Like I said, they support this podcast now, and I'm so gracious to them. The words can't explain how happy I am that they are supporting this. And now to move on to our contest. So if you're interested, it's we're doing a $50 gift certificate to Broadway Limited. It's a giveaway, no purchase necessary. We have a form that we'll have you fill out. It's in the comment section, or I should say not comment section, in the info section, right, usually below. It'll be in there, along with Broadway Limited's website, Conductor Club website address. But the contest is one entry per person. If you are interested in getting a second entry, two chances, head on over to patreon.com/model railroad talk and become a premium supporter over there. And all premium supporters get a second entry. Or if you don't want to do a monthly thing, you can head on over to buymeacoffee.com/ModelRailTalk. And you can make a donation there, and that will qualify you for a second chance. We will be drawing that April 20th, or I should say, we'll be drawing it not on April 26th. The contest ends April 26th. We'll be drawing it the Saturday after that, and we'll be drawing it live, and so that way you can see who wins. And the form, just so you're aware, we don't spam you or nothing like that. The information on there, just it does kind of we collect basically we ask you two questions and a little bit of your info just so we can get in contact with you, just so we kind of know where the podcast is going. So if you have any questions, you can email us modelrailroadtalk@gmail.com. Or you can check us out on YouTube under, guess what, Model Railroad Talk, or Facebook. And you guessed it, Model Railroad Talk, and TikTok as well over there. Or also, if you have any questions, if you would like to have any questions directed towards Curtis from Broadway Limited, you can put them in the comments or email us, and we will collect the questions up. He will be back on probably sometime in April, probably middle of April is when the episode will come out, but he's going to come back on, when his schedule allows him to be able to come back on here. So we're excited to have him back on, and we thank Broadway Limited again. We can't thank them enough, and Curtis enough, for their support. So check the link below. It takes you to a form. That's it, not a spam. Get registered for the free giveaway, a $50 gift card to Broadway Limited Imports. And like we said, if you have any questions, reach out to us, modelrailroadtalk@gmail.com. And this episode's long enough, so we are gonna not bug you anymore. So we hope you have good modeling time after this, depending on when you're listening to this. So, like we always say, till the next time, keep your train on the tracks.